On Saturday, it was, I thought, kind of what we imagined it was going to be. It was going to be a heavyweight fight. The thing that was most discouraging early on was A-Chain, right?
Oh.
Like the fact that he was going early was, to me, like a clear sign that this was going to be a hell of a game. Like, this is going to be a 4-quarter, get your mind right, be ready to play, because Devin A-Chain came to play tonight on a bum ankle. He ends up going.
Oh, he was hurt?
For 215 and a couple of scores on Saturday. Only a career night for the Aggie running back as LSU falls to Texas A&M. Now, they finished the season 9-3. All right, let's look at this thing in a vacuum real quick. In a vacuum, Saturday sucked for LSU, right? The way that they had navigated the month of November was very encouraging for this team and the future of what the program looked like. They just looked very competitive. The most impressive thing was that they always looked like they were prepared to play. On Saturday, they did not look as if they were best prepared to play, and Brian Kelly went into the postgame and said as much, right? He didn't come out and say, we prepared, well, we didn't do a good job preparing. He just said there's some things that we have to, with success, understand what comes along with that. And we have to develop those traits. So for Saturday's reaction, it was bad. They were pushed around on both sides of the ball. Look, we could talk about Jaden Daniels' performance. We could talk about some of the skill players' performance, and we'll get there. The most concerning part for me was the line of scrimmage, and specifically on the defensive side of the line of scrimmage, because that is a group and a unit all season long that has not been shoved around since Florida State. You know what I mean? It's been a long time that you were wondering and curious, what's the deal with the defensive line? And on Saturday, when you looked up, hell, man, there was 3-4 yards of space before A-Chain was getting contact. I mean, forget line of scrimmage being able to, create some type of push, at that point of attack. I mean, LSU was getting shoved off the ball 3, 4, 5 yards before A-Chain was even getting hit. The tackling was underwhelming. I mean, they played bad. And, we can sit here and talk about, blocking and Jaden Daniels' ball security and catching the football and all of what would happen on Saturday. The analysis is, the description of it, the elevator pitch they played like crap. They had a bad game and got beat by a good team that we all knew that if they came and put it together. The thing that I'd be most pissed about if I'm an A&M fan is like, yo, man, I mean, like, where the hell has this been? Why haven't you been playing all these kids, all these true freshmen? I mean, that class is super special, man. I mean, that class is, and some of the best players aren't even playing.
I wish Muhammad would have worn sleeves. Jesus.
I mean,
would love to see him not play.
I mean, hell, the quarterback's a player. You know what I mean? Like, they got guys all over the place, specifically in that 22 class that, you knew if they put it together, they're going to be tough. And the thing that this does for A&M is it does propel them into an off season of what might be. And I know that A&M is always wait till next year university. But when you watch them play on Saturday night, next year looks like they're going to be a tough out if all those guys come back, because there is a young, talented group that Jimbo's going to have to – he's either going to have to put a coaching staff around to continue to develop, and, he's going to have to probably play a little bit of defense here to the transfer portal early on. But if he can get those guys back on campus, there is reason to be positive in Aggie land. Man, that Yell stuff on Thursday night was about as bad as it's gotten. I mean, like, it was.
Coach.
I love Hunt Palmer. Hunt Palmer is one of my favorites.
Absolutely.
Just a treasure of knowledge. Hunt went into a little imitation of the Aggie yell on Friday on Moscona's show. That was a little outside of the box personality for Hunt, but I thought he crushed it.
See, Hunt has
Lucci quote tweeted it and like flipped it the bird after the game, so you knew like it had crawled with them for all weekend.
I mean, you think we can play with the old guard flag?
We've got no problem. We've got no problem. I don't know if the suits over there. I mean, for as tight as they are on the Culotta show, I doubt that they would really.
Is that all 22
it.
I'm seeing
but
over there?
You're welcome on the free promotion there. You know,
love a guy Hunt.
But just you could see just how much this game meant to Texas A&M, and really, I don't mean to discredit it, and I'm not excusing it because LSU got beat, but it didn't look like it meant that much, right? Like, I mean, it looked like they were a little bit of a, kind of looking towards Atlanta or maybe thinking that they could pull into College Station and just kind of coast through it. And as Brian Kelly called out, I mean, the text messages that I was getting, the phone calls that I was getting after the game, some about Brian Kelly. I mean, I thought like one of them, I asked the guy back, I was like, this is a joke, right? I mean, like, you're not serious, are you? I mean, it's like, Kelly's exactly who we thought he was. And I was like, what? A championship level coach? I mean, like, pump the brakes. Okay, so that's the reaction in the microwave, right? Like, in the vacuum on Saturday night, that sucked. You had an opportunity to win your 10th game going into the championship week in Atlanta, carrying a little bit of momentum. You would have loved to have won that game. They came out, they laid an egg. They didn't play good. They had bad turnovers. Defensively, they played one of their worst games of the season. They played it at the wrong time. A-Chain was emotionally, physically, he was all fired up, even on a bum ankle, and he ends up going for a career night. That's what it took. LSU gets whooped. It sucks. Yeah? I mean, like, the breakdown of the game is that, really they kind of had opportunities. I thought after the fumble, the game just kind of got away from LSU. And, they had chances, but at the end, I thought Texas A&M was just more in it. They were more motivated. They wanted that game. I mean, that's a nice springboard into the offseason for them. And now, LSU's got an opportunity to get back out onto the field. I mean, one thing that is beautiful about sports is that it always kind of gives you an opportunity to go redeem yourself if you, Texas A&M doesn't have that opportunity. Some schools don't have that opportunity. LSU's still in a chance where you can go make things right. And I will tell you, my first reaction on Saturday when they lost that game, I mean, it was just a quiet Saturday night. Kelly and I were just kind of laying around watching the game. I looked at Kelly and I said, they're going to beat Georgia. Because now the pressure's off. They're going in there and they're playing with almost a sense of nothing to lose, house money, however you want to put it, going against a team in Georgia that they're going to the championship. Georgia's in the same exact position that they were in 365 days ago, where they had gone through the regular season undefeated. They had stamped their ticket to Atlanta. They were already a shoo-in to not only be in the college football playoff, but to be the 1 seed in the playoff going into the SEC tournament, going into the SEC championship. So in a vacuum on Saturday night, again, look, that was a bad performance. You hate to lose on that. You hate to lose that way in a final regular season game. They were shoved around. Like I said, I thought that was the most discouraging part of watching that game, was the way that the defensive line was just kind of on roller skates. I mean, they were just really they were kind of being steered by a really underwhelming Texas A&M offensive line and a hurt running back to go for a career nut. Not difficult to find motivation for those guys this week. B.J. Ojolari, Mekhi Wingo, Ali Gay, Jacoby, and all those guys up front. I mean, there's a lot of locker room material. There's a lot of coaching material that you can put in their face and feel like you'll get the best of them come Saturday, because they're better than that. I mean, like we've watched that group play now for 11, 12 straight weeks, right? I mean, that was kind of an outlying game. That didn't look like the rule. That looked like the exception, right? I mean, that looked as if something just wasn't right. I think they can get that stuff right. Now for the overall stuff. I mean, like I said, I mean, I'm sure you were reading message boards. I'm sure you were talking internally in your text groups and talking to your buddies and talking to your people and family, and people were talking about the game. And some of the reaction that I saw and some of the reaction that I got text about, like the one that really stood out was a buddy of mine that, I mean, again, and he rarely will ever compliment the program. It's always, it's always catastrophe syndrome. It's always about, what's plaguing the program rather than what's complimenting it. And I mean, as soon as the gun went final, as soon as the clock hit 0-0 on the clock, I mean, the text message came through. Kelly's exactly who we thought he was. And I mean, like, I was like typing that. I'm like, before I said, I'm like, I'm not even, I'm staying off the grid for the weekend. I'm just not even like getting into this. I was like, I'm putting this stuff down. But come on. I mean, like, Kelly is who we thought he was. You know who I thought Brian Kelly was? I thought that Brian Kelly was a guy with a bad personality that was difficult to talk to, that was stuck in his ways, and that was going to berate and scream in the face of his players and trying to get the best of him. Everything that I thought about Brian Kelly coming into this season, I was completely wrong about. Completely off about. I've been to all but 2 of his Monday press conferences, a lot of the media and the build-up to the season. The thing that struck me most about Brian Kelly was his emphasis on how he communicated, how clear his communication tactics, or not tactics, just the way that he communicated was taken. The fact that he had a sense of humor. Now, it's easy to $100 million, 10-year contract. I get all of that stuff that's built into the personality and how that can shift you. But either way, that's who I thought he was when he was coming down here from South Bend. I've also had a chance, just like all of you, to watch his team now regularly for the past, college football season. And are we really going to debate whether or not his team is not disciplined and well prepared each week? And that to win in the SEC on the road is a very difficult task to do, even against the bottom feeders. I mean, nobody around here, at least last week, was saying, hey, don't be fooled by Texas A&M's record. You still got to get off the bus, and you better be ready to play, because if you're not, they could beat you. Right? And I think people knew that over at the LSU facility. It wasn't as if they just kind of like, hey, fellas, see you Saturday. They put the work in. They watched the film. It was a bad week of prep. Once they got to Saturday at Kyle Field, they didn't execute like they had been all season. And you had a team on the other sideline that
starving.
In weeks and months of not having anything to play for, there was finally something on the plate that looked delicious. Everybody was ready to eat. And everybody on Saturday night, it was all the name brands. It was Shamar Stewart was making plays. Walter Nolan was making plays. Muhammad was making plays. It was all these guys that if you're looking around, you're like, where the hell these guys been all season? I heard about them in recruiting, but here they are. Right? And LSU's kind of like, still trying to kind of figure out offensive line. One sequence, I look out there and I see Miles Frazier. The next I see Garrett Dellinger. Look again, Miles Frazier's back. They're still just kind of like trying to figure out. Josh Williams is stressed out. He's not playing. They still had issues that they were just trying to kind of like navigate through. So again, I'm not excusing Saturday. Saturday sucked. They weren't prepared. They got outplayed. But all in all, in the season, if you'd have told anybody I know in this room, especially me, and if you're listening out there, if you're being really honest with yourself, and you would have said in the offseason, if I was doing this show at SEC Media Day like we did back in Atlanta in July, and when I would have said, hey, Tigers are going to go 9-3 in the regular season and go to the SEC championship and play Georgia, 100% of us would have all signed up. Right? Nobody would have been like, Kelly he kind of is who I thought he was then. Like, what? You got 38 scholarship players 10 months ago. He had a wide receiver playing quarterback in the bowl game he watched before this season. I mean, like, let's all just kind of take a step back. And I know that this is probably the loud minority and not the overall majority of the fan base out there that is saying that Kelly ain't the guy. Look, there's too much that's been accomplished and done here in year one that would make anybody with a lot of just common sense say, wow, LSU, they nailed that hire. Right? So remember, every Monday morning, our first hour is brought to you by Bayou Carlin Oyster Company. What the Shuck? What the Shuck is obviously the performance of LSU on Saturday night. We'll react here to it a little bit, but
he's going to nominate, maybe. Is Dre Jenkins, is that a touchdown? Do we know what a touchdown is?
I mean, if that's not a touchdown, what is a touchdown?
I mean,
he catches the ball in his gut. He got 1 foot in bounds. He has 2 steps after that, and then comes down and drops the ball. What?
He could have given it to a kid in the stands.
What is he supposed to do with that? That was some Calvin Johnson stuff.
That was the Dez Bryant.
That was just like, if that's not a catch,
what are we looking at?
I don't even know.
And I'm not trying to play woe is me and it's the officials or all that. I think, personally, LSU was tapped. Like, it's so hard to continue to play every game being for your life. And then you run into a team that we ain't got shit to play for, but now we do. And like you said, all of the guys that needed to show up showed up. LSU just looked tired. Like, it's been an exhausting year. And call me a homer, call me whatever. Brian Kelly can only emphasize that message so many times before it rings. I don't want to say rings hollow, but before the guys can't get off the mat. Like, coach, what? And you say I'm with you on the Georgia thing. I think it'll be closer than the 17.5 it is right now. But the one disparaging thing is Jaden Daniels is cut up.
Yeah,
like, he's hurt.
Yeah, and he seems a little mentally shook right now. Again, he kind of seems like it's fast for him, and Georgia is going to be electric on that carpet. Like, they are going to be flying out there. Football God, who's responsible for a bad week of prep? Well, Brian Kelly said that. He was accountable for that. He's not running from that. And it's not the Ogeron, it's on me every Saturday night. I mean, like, it's well thought out, detailed remarks on why they missed, why they felt like they were off. And I think that this doesn't the way that I read the post-game press conference and watching it and listening to the comments was that he wasn't really surprised by it. There was probably at times last week during preparation where he was probably telling his guys, like, we're off. we better catch a break on Saturday night, or we might get run out. And, coaches can feel that. I mean, players can feel that. Guys can feel that. If you're not locked in and you're not preparing, especially in a week of an SEC game, it doesn't matter if it's a 4-win team or it's Bama in Tuscaloosa. It doesn't matter. That's what we've talked about with the television contract. What this is about to kind of kick up. Every week, you're going to be in a dogfight where the basement can beat the ceiling. Right? I mean, perfect example. The final regular season week of 2022, the last place team in the SEC West just beat the first place team in the SEC West, and it didn't look like a fluke. Right? I mean, like, that was no accident. They outplayed them. They outschemed them. They outcoached them. I mean, all of the things that you would look at and say, hey, man, better team won tonight. That's just how it was. But, I mean, all in all, LSU, where they are, I mean, they're going to Atlanta. I mean, some of you are gearing up to take family trips, guy trips, people, college trips, old buddy trips to the SEC title game to watch LSU play in year one of Brian Kelly. Like, look, I know we all want really good football and we want it to be competitive every Saturday night, but let's pump the brakes on really kind of going in on the fallout of Saturday. I mean, Saturday that sucked. You know what I mean? Like but that's not what the program is. The program is this week. The program is week 1. You're going to Atlanta with a chance to win the SEC title.